Hello, my dear viewers, listeners, and my colleague trainers, teachers, lecturers, and other professionals who are in charge of equipping students with knowledge and skills through online method of teaching. In this presentation, we are going to learn about how to assess the students through the use of Google Classroom Learning Management System. And we are also going to see how you can grade them and also return their results. This presentation is a continuation of the 3-part series on management of online teaching. The video for part 1, which was on creation and application of a Google Classroom, and part 2, which was on how to post materials in the Google Classroom. And this is just part 3 on how you can assess the students that you have been teaching or training using Google Classroom Learning Management System. Welcome. Just as I have said, before you decide to assess your students online through Google Classroom Learning Management System, you need to ensure that just as you would have done in a physical classroom, you have been administering and managing your teaching through Google Classroom Learning Management System, because you can't just wake up one day and then you decide to assess your students using a learning management system that they are not used to. And therefore, for you to decide to assess your students, either give them assignments, give them cards, give them quizzes or exams using Google Classroom LMS, you need to ensure that they have been learning through the same learning management system. And therefore, before you set an assessment, you need to have already created and initialized your Google Classroom. And this is very well covered in my first video on creating and applying a Google Classroom. You can find out details of this process in part 1 series that is already posted in my YouTube channel by the name Emily Swap ICT. After you have created and initialized your classroom, the next step is to ensure you have added your students into that classroom. Simply, these students are the students that have already been learning using this Google Classroom, and you have been teaching them using the same platform. So they are already registered as students in the classroom. And this is also very well demonstrated in my part 1 series on managing your teaching, your online teaching using Google Learning Management System, part 1. Then step 3 is, before you administer an assessment and you request students to take the assessment, you need to have given them adequate time to interact with the class so as to familiarize themselves with it. In other words, the students should have been using this platform in their interactions, in their discussions, and also in executing various tasks. Then the 4th step is now to set up your assessment, either an assignment, a quiz, a CAT, an exam, or any other type of assessment, you need to formulate all the test requirements. As a trainer or a teacher, you know the requirements for setting a good exam, a good assessment, an assessment that can be able to give you the feedback that you expect. And therefore, the same requirements you are supposed to adhere to when administering or setting and administering a physical examination are the same ones that you are supposed to adhere to when you are setting an assessment to be taken online. And some of these requirements including in your assessment, test items or items that span across various levels according to Bloom's taxonomy, from application or from knowledge to comprehension to application and the rest of the levels. Then also make a decision on the time that is supposed to be taken by the trainees or students to take your online assessment. In addition, make a decision as to when that assessment is supposed to be done or to be taken. You also need to make a determination in advance on the specific scores that you are going to assign to a specific item and the overall score that is supposed to be generated by the assessment after the student has taken all the items and other details. And therefore, you are supposed to abide by the procedures of carrying out an evaluation, that is setting examinations, just as would be required for you if you were to set, administer, mark, and grade a physical face-to-face assessment. And therefore, you need to make use of the various tools in setting your assessment, such as what we call the table of specifications, amongst the others. And therefore, this is supposed to be done manually before you key in that data into the online learning management system, which is the Google Classroom assessment tool. Remember, if your online exam will be taken or your online assessment will be taken remotely without your physical supervision, then you should avoid setting direct items that answers can be easily lifted from your notes or from the internet, or avoid giving time, a lot of time, to make students to hold the discussions. And therefore, that is very important so that you can be able to minimize or avoid the cheating that may be rampant if you don't heed to that attention or to that area. Then the fifth step is you should always develop a marking scheme and a grading criteria for your assessment before you have keyed in that assessment details or items in the Google Classroom LMS assessment tool, which we call the quiz assignment tool. This is very important because your marking scheme will guide you as to the type of items you're supposed to have, the amount of time to allocate, the amount of marks or scores to allocate per item amongst the other requirements. Step 6 is after you have set your assessment, then you schedule it or you post it to the students that have met the requirements. So if you are to post it and the students do it on the spot or immediately, then you just assign it to the students, or you can schedule. That means fix a date and the time when your assessment will be taken. Then the next step, after you have released the assessment, you have posted the assessment to the students will attempt it. And after the attempt, they are going to send back or submit back to you through the Google Classroom Learning Management System their feedback or the items they have attempted. And therefore, you will receive them and then you can compile the scores. If the marking was automated, or you mark the test items as you assign scores or grades to them. Once you are through with marking and grading, then you return the scores to students, either as individuals or to the class as a whole. And therefore, the purpose of assessment, always remember, is to give you feedback and also give the students feedback. And therefore, you should not assess your students and then you refuse to give them their results and on time. This is very important because it helps them know how they have performed. Then once you have done that, you download the results for filing or for other administrative or personal purposes. Therefore, let us see a demonstration on how you can be able to successfully set an assessment and how you can grade it and how you can compile the results and how you can return them to the students and also how you can download them for your safe custody, either in soft copy or in hard copy. Therefore, my dear colleague teachers, trainers, instructors, just as I said in part 1 video on managing your online teaching using a Google Classroom learning management system and how to create and apply in Google Classroom, you should always remember that for you to be able to access your online classroom, you need to first load your browser. And that browser is Google Chrome or Google. And then you ensure that you are signed in that browser using the email that you have used to create your class. Like in this case, for me to be able to access this class whose assessment I want to create, I have to ensure that I am signed in this browser using the email account that I used when I was creating this class. And therefore, you need to click on this top right hand corner of your screen and see who is signed in. Currently, I am signed in this browser using the email emilyswap@gmail.com, and therefore the user of this account is myself, who is the teacher, and the name of this teacher is Emily Swap Enterprises International. And therefore, once you are properly signed in, you'll be able to access and see the classes. But remember that for you to be able to access this class, you have to search for Google Classroom on the browser. The details on how you do this are in part 1 series on creating and applying a Google Classroom. Therefore, if you don't remember this process, kindly visit that video which is already posted under Emeliswap ICT channel. And therefore, the class that we are going to be setting the assessment for in our case is by the name FICT 2022J M1 ICT. And therefore, we need to open this class by clicking on it. Once you have clicked on this class, you'll be taken to the first screen, which we said is the stream screen. The section where various posts and discussions are made. Then you'll be able to see the classwork section. We have the people section and the grades section. Now, for us to be able now to set our assessment, we are going to click on classwork. So you point on classwork and click. It is always very important for you to create topics in your classwork section. And this discussion on the use of topics, how you organize them, and how you post the materials in this section are discussed in details in our part 2 presentation on using or managing your online teaching using Google Classroom part 2 series, which is on posting materials in the classroom. And therefore, to get more information about how you do that, visit Emily Swap ICT YouTube channel and then look for the video by the title using or managing your online teaching using Google Classroom Learning Management System part 2 on posting materials in the Google Classroom. Now, for our assessments, it's going to create a topic, and I have already created a topic here by the name assessments. So anytime you are making a post for an assessment of whichever type, they should always appear on this section or under this section under assessments. You can even call it exams, call it cards, organize it the way you want. And therefore, we are going to proceed now to create our assessment. And in this case, I am going to create an opening card. So my assessment will be a card, a continuous assessment test. The same procedure I am going to use to demonstrate or illustrate how to create a card is the same one that you can follow when you want to create any other type of assessment, whether an exam, whether a card, whether a quiz, or any other type of assessment that you want your students to take. And therefore, to create your exam or card, you click on create. Remember, first of all, you click on the classwork, and then you click on create. I have clicked. Now, when you click on create, you are going to get several tools here that you can use. The first one, you can click on assignment, and then you give your students an assignment. You can click on quiz assignment tool to set quiz, an exam, or any other type of assessment, and especially where you are going to allocate or assign scores and grades. And then you can use the question tool to post it to students a certain question. And then material is where you want to post materials for students. We are going to discuss this, and we have discussed it deeply in our part 2 series. And this other one is for reposting or using posts. And this other one is when you want to create a topic. So our interest in this presentation will be on quiz assignment tool, which I have said you can use to create your cards, quizzes, and even exams that require students to be graded. So we are going to click on quiz assignment. So you point on it and click. When you click, you can see a new window has opened with the heading assignment. It has the heading assignment. So below assignment, we have title, we have the instructions, which are optional. We have the formatting tools here to format your instructions. And then in this section, this is where you select your assessment tool from, or this is where you create your assessment from. Now, there are several ways of creating an assessment, a card, an exam, or even a quiz. This section is for the details about the overall details about your assessment. Under the fourth section, this is where you select the class or classes that will take your assessment. And then at this section, you select the specific students that you would like to take your assessment. This part, under this part, you specify the score, the overall score, how many marks will your assignment have. Then under due, this is where you set the date and the time when the students should submit the assessment back to you for marking and grading. And then under this section, this is where you select or enter the topic for your assessment. That is the heading under which your assessment will be displayed. And then this section is called the rubric. This is where you provide further details in relation to your grading criteria. We are going to set these options after we are through with setting our assessment, which in this case will be a card. So let's come back to this section here, where you do your setting of the test items from, or your assessment items from. But before we do that, let's give our assessment a title by typing it on this section. So you click on title and type the name of your assessment, which is going to be used to identify your assessment. Give it always a name that is identifiable from many other assignments. So my class is FICT/J/M1, and I've said mine is an opening card. So I'll call it ICT opening card. That is the name of my assessment. And the instructions here, I will give some instructions. The first instruction will be attempt all the questions in this card. Number 2, inform them the scores. This card contains 3 questions to be marked out of 30. Remember, it's just a card. Number 3, I can inform my students that this card should be submitted 1 minute to time. This is very important because if the new time is fixed at a certain time, if a student sends or submits his or her assessment, at the end of that time, the marking may not be done and that assignment may not be received. And then the 4th instruction I can give is that this card takes 5 minutes and it closes at exactly, let me give it some time, for example, at exactly 11:50 p.m. Those are just instructions. Then from here, we now choose the method for including our items in the assignment. So we have several options we can use. We can select them from here, or we can use this option here. And therefore, if you have an existing document that contains your questions already in your Google Drive, you don't need to set it from scratch. You don't need to set your card or assessment from scratch. What you need to do is to click on the first option or the first icon here, which is for Google Drive. So you just click on it. If you have it, personally, I don't have it. And therefore, I will not select this option. Then the second one is you may have a file in Word or Excel or any other format already stored in your local drive, like in your hard disk or a CD or a flash. So in that case, you will select this option here, which is on upload file. When you point at it, you see this for upload file. Then if you want to, you have the test items in form of a document in a certain folder within a network, and you want to access it from there, you click on that option here, where you have what we call a link. So you can just add a link. And then you may also decide to access or use a certain YouTube video, like where you are speaking and you are telling students what is required. So you just speak, give your instructions orally, and then the students do as is said. So in that case, you will click on the YouTube video. If you have other places or avenues from where you can get the items from, you can click on this button here, which is for attaching new items. However, if you don't have any existing documents containing or videos containing your test items or your assessment items, then you are supposed to click on the blank quiz form. And this is the one that we are going to use for our demonstration. So you just click on it. So you click on blank quiz. Quiz, you have one tab for questions, the other tab for responses, that is after students have given feedback, and this other tab is on setting. This is where you undertake several settings for your assessment before you release it. And the blank quiz here, this is where you give your assessment the name. And then under form description here, you can explain what it is or just post here instructions. And then this section is for posting or adding your items or your questions. Then for identification purposes in your drive, because you may have very many exams or very many assessments, and the blank quiz here, you replace this one with the name for your assessment. So under this section here, against every question, this part will always appear. This is where you choose or you select the type of item or the type of the answers that your students should post per item. If you want to include a picture as part of your assessment, then you click on this icon here. On this section here, on your screen, or on this window, we have the first one here is the button that you always click to add items in your assessment. So you click on it and then you type or you add your items as I will demonstrate just now. And therefore, this I have said is for adding questions. However, if you have questions that are already existing in another previous exam or a form for an exam, a quiz or a CAT, then instead of setting the questions afresh, you just need to click on this button here for you to import questions from another form. And then if you want to add headings, if you want to add headings to your various sections of the assessment, like section A, and you give instructions, section B, you give instructions, then you click on this button here to add a title at a specific section and the instructions. Then if you want to include an image in your assessment, in your CAT exam, you can click on this button. If you have a video that want to integrate within your assessment in YouTube or from YouTube, then you click on this button here. And then finally, if you want to add a section, within your assessment, you click on this button. Whenever you click any of these, you follow the instructions that are there. Then, after you have set your question on this section, you have specified the type of answers that we expect at this section. Then, at this section, you need to enter details, or you need to decide whether the question is compulsory or optional. If it is compulsory, you activate this button here as I'll demonstrate. Otherwise, if it is optional, that means it's not compulsory, you just leave it. And then on this part here, this is the section where you make determination on whether the answers that you have posted here should be mixed up to minimize cheating or not, plus adding more details, as you will see in the example that I'm going to illustrate just now as we set our cut. Then, once you have set your question, you can also click on this button here or this section here to inform the system about the correct answer or answers and the marks that the item will be allocated once the student has attempted that item. So let's set our details for the card. Let's set our items. So under blank quiz here, you can click here and then we are going to type as FICT stroke 2022 stroke J stroke M1 ICT opening card. Then under form instructions, I can repeat the instructions, a few of the instructions that I had on the other side. The first instruction being this card carries 30 marks and contains, or let's separate them, separate instructions. Instruction 2 is that this or all the questions in this card are compulsory. By that instruction be that ensure you submit your responses before the time elapses. You can also provide more details or more instructions according to your interest or as per your specifications or requirements. Then under blank quiz here, enter the name for your form or for your quiz so that you are able to identify it amongst many others. So it is FICT 2022 stroke J stroke M1. Then ICT opening card. Good. Then we now set our test items. Already, Google Classroom LMS has given us the button to click or for our first item. So, assuming I have already developed my table of specifications and I have the test items, what I'll do is just to type them. So remember, don't number your items as number 1, 2, or 3 to minimize cheating, especially when you want several students to be taking different questions at the same time. So like my first question, I'll post my first question being, you can purchase a computer without your knowledge. So this kind of an item, I expect the students to select from the answers that I will give. And therefore, on this section, I will decide the type of answers that I have. I will click there, and then I will select multiple choice because I want the student to tick or to select the correct answer. If I want them to write a short answer, if my question was, for example, define ICT, then I expect students to type an answer. So I'll select short answer so that students type the answer themselves. If I want students to explain what they have written or write a paragraph as an answer for me to mark, then I'll select paragraph. If I want students to choose by ticking from the options available that are provided or the answers I would have provided, then I'll select checkboxes. If you have several answers that I want the students to make their selection from, choose one from the several in the form of a drop down, then I will choose drop down. If I have asked a question and I want the students to upload, that means I want the students to write or to type their answer in the form of a document like Microsoft Word, and then they send their answer to me, then I'll select the file upload that I have highlighted. If I have a series of options available ranging from one level to another, like agree, strongly agree, disagree, neutral, and all that, a certain range, then I'll choose linear scale. If I want my answers or students to give me answers, or I wanted to post to students answers to choose from in form of a table or a grid, then I'll use multiple choice grid where I'll have several answers for them to select. And I can also make use of checkbox where students can tick the correct answers from. You can also have date, and also you can have an item that requires time. So I will choose multiple choice. And therefore, in this case, our answers from which the students will select from will be multiple choice. And then we need to enter those multiple choices from which students will select from under this section. Therefore, because our question reads, you can purchase a computer without your knowledge, we expect the answer to be either true or false. And therefore, we shall not go with these suggestions here. So we are going to click under the options, option 1 here, we type one of the multiple choices, and then we add the other one. So you click on backspace, type true. That is option. Those are the wrong. Once you, the next step is just as I said, to make it compulsory. Currently, that question is optional. So let's make it compulsory by activating the required button. So you click on the button, this button next to required, that is composed of 3 dots, so that you are able to decide answers. To deny cheating, click on that button, you click on shuffle option order so that the answers are mixed, so that you don't always follow in the order of true, false, the way you have written them. Therefore, in that case, you click on shuffle. You can also add by clicking on description or stand with this info for now. So we shall leave the description and go to section options. Good. Then, because it's also good for the system to mark for us, we shall do the grading by entering the correct answer as per our marking scheme, and also the scores or the score value by clicking on the answer key that I have highlighted. So you click on answer key, and it will contain 3 test items. My cut is out of 30, so each item I want 10 marks. Remember, this is for demonstration purposes only. And then at this point, I'll tick the correct answer. That will give the student the score or the points I will assign it there. So the question reads, you can purchase a computer without your knowledge, true or false? The answer to this question will be true. Why? As computers, we have what we call a computer, like a free. So when you purchase that device, computer, because you won't even see it, by the version that you purchased that which you can't see, then computer without your knowledge, you can have the fridge is controlled by a computer, an embedded computer. Enter. Then you click on that is ready. Now let's add our next item, test item, by clicking on the and question that I've highlighted. So we have our next question here. So our next question that cut or read that system is different or computer. A physical conditions here, or you can say true or false applies, you can add them. So a computer system is different from a physical computer. True or false. So let's choose them true or false. So we type true or what is proposing for you are correct. You don't need to type them. Just click on and or. So I'll click on and or, the one which is item, shuffle, and answer key. And the computer system is different from a physical. The answer will be true. So a computer system, which you can, then we have the software that a computer. Once you are through with that, as usual, click on and, so that you add another item. So I want to, therefore, I will click on this button here for an image, so that my student, a picture, you have to specify where it is or browse for it. So you can upload one. You can, if you have one in your machine, click on upload. This option here, and then you browse for it. You can also record one or take one directly using your camera if the computer or the device you are using to set your exam or your assessment as a camera. You can also have a universal resource locator address to the picture, so you can add it there, or you can select one from photos that are already stored in your Google Drive, or you can search for an image anywhere within the web by clicking on Google Image. So in my case, I will upload one which is already in my machine, and therefore I will click on upload and then browse. So for my image to be, I will have to select it from my picture in the computer, searching for it. Pictures here, click on open. Once you have done that, it appears. I will type a question here. The following illustrates a desktop and options. I'll have option, click on this tab for required if the question must be done, and also click on this button and shuffle your answers. You of course then click on answer key, and here this image that we have here is not a desktop computer. it is a laptop. And therefore, it means that our correct answer is supposed to be then the total marks. So with that, test items. If we click on responses here, you'll find his or her that you can allow students to attempt the assessment once it is released by clicking on accept responses. So you switch this button on, or you can decide you post that assignment or that assessment. The students will not be able to participate in giving or posting answers for it. So you can decide to close the submissions by clicking on not accepting responses. That means by switching this button off. And you can see that you'll be told that the form is no longer accepting responses. This is what the students will get, the information they will get when they try to attempt your assessment. So if you post this assessment or this card for students to be able to attempt it, once the time for attempting it is due, then it is important for you to switch that button on. Them can wait for students to make their submissions. Then, if you look on this section here, this part here, we have a button there which allows whatever responses that students will be able to submit to be stored in form of an Excel sheet. Therefore, if you want those responses to be stored in form of a sheet, you can click on that this button here, and then you click on create. So that will be stored here. I will retain the same name, FICT 2022 J/M1 ICT opening cards. You can also, if you have another kind of a spreadsheet in which you want the answers to be stored, you click on select existing spreadsheet. So once you have given or you have typed the name for the spreadsheet that you want to create, then click on create. So the answers will be automatically stored on that spreadsheet. After you have done that, you will see that my browser will be loading because it is trying to load the answers or the responses that the students will post. So currently, what we have in this spreadsheet on this sheet is the timestamp. That is the time when the students will make their submission. When any student will submit his or her assessment, the time for submission will be indicated, the score that the system will assign that student, and then these are the questions. What you can see here, this is the first equation. This will be the second equation. This is the third question. And therefore, the answers will appear at the bottom. So when the first student will submit, the time will be there, the score will be here, the answer to the first equation, answer to the second equation, answer to the third equation, like that, in that order. So currently, our Excel sheet does not contain any answers. Then most of you are not. So with that, and then you go back to our process of finalizing with setting our assessment. So the next thing we need to do, the first thing we need to do is to work on settings. We need to make settings for our assessment. So there are specific settings that we need to make for our card. so that the students can attempt this cut according to the settings that we need to make. This option here is very important. So let's see the settings that we need to include. So click on settings. After you click on settings, once you click on settings, you'll be able to see various settings here, or before you post our assessment to the students. And therefore, on whether you want to make this the content in this form to be a quiz. If you want them to be a quiz, that means to assign point values, set answers, and automatically provide the feedback as we have done, then this button should remain active. Anytime you choose quiz assignment tool under the classwork, then automatically this one will be switched on. If you don't want to make it a quiz or to have automatic grading, you switch off. Then how do you want the source to be released? Is it immediately after each submission? That means once a student submits, he or she receives the results, or it is later. Now, if your test items are to be marked automatically by the system as we have done in our case, then you can choose immediately after each submission. But if you want, maybe there are some items you need to look at. There are some items you need to mark yourself, and then there are other things you need to do before you release the results or the grades to students, then it is good that you tick on later after manual review. But always remember, if you want to store students' responses, you want to store students' results so that you can also look at them later, then you will be required to set in our next part below there. So in our case, I will retain immediately after each submission. Then this part here is very important, especially to ensure that students will not cheat when they are doing your online assessment or they are taking your online CAT or exam, because they are doing it away from you. So because you're not supervising them, it is important that you hide some information. Like in the first case here, you are being asked whether you want the respondents to see the questions they have gotten wrong, that they have gotten a wrong answer or they have given the wrong answer. Currently, it is active. It means that if the students attempt the question and you release the results, they'll be able to know the questions they got wrong, so they can easily share the results with others. So it's good that you switch this button off. Correct answers. Would you like your respondents to see the answers, the correct answers for this test item, for this assessment? If you click on this button, this one, the respondents will be able to see the correct answers after the grades are released. So when the students will receive the grade, his or her score, he or she will also be able to see which was the correct answer to which question. This can also make students to cheat a lot, because one student can receive his or her grades and then show the students the correct answers. So switch it, the point values and the points received for each question. Then you also need to switch this one on as it is. But remember, if it is like this, and the student sees that he or she has gotten a score, the student can also share that score with others, because the student will know whether he or she has gotten it wrong or not. So switch it off. So switch that button off. Good. You decide whether you want to make a certain score to be default to every question. So if every question carries equal marks, like in our case, every question is carrying 10 marks, then instead of typing the values, the points per a question, you can just set your points here and currently they are 10. So I don't need to change that. Then on this section, you manage how your responses will be collected and protected. This part is very important. So it's good to click here and then you activate this button for the emails. Remember, every student in this class has an email, and the answers that the students will submit should be marked and be remitted or submitted using their emails as the way to identify them. So it's always good to ensure that your form or your assessment collects the student's email so that you're able to know who was doing or was taking this cut. And also, this one will also help them in receiving the results or the grades when you release them. So switch this button on by clicking on it. And then this other part here means that students or the respondents can receive a copy of their responses. It's always good for them to remain as off until when you want the students to receive the marking scheme or to know what they are given or the answers they are posted after the grading is over, but not before. Because if you do that before, that will also increase the tendency for students to cheat. Now, this other part here is where you decide on whether you like students to edit their responses or to change their responses after they have done their submission. This is also not a nice thing to be done, so it's good to switch it off. Currently, it is switched off, meaning that the responses cannot be changed after submission. If we activate it by clicking, it means that the respondents will be able to change their responses. So let it remain as it is. Now, it's always good for each student to take the assessment once. So if you want to limit the students to a single attempt for the purposes of also minimizing cheating, then click on this button, switch it on. Each student will be required to sign in their Google browser before they attempt the quiz. This is very good because it's only the students who are in your Google Classroom that will be able to do or to take this assessment, and they'll only make a single submission. So always remember to switch this button on. It is going to improve the responses that you are going to get or the feedback that you are going to get. Then there's this section here on the presentation. Want your responses to be presented. First of all, it's good for students to see how they are progressing. If your assessment has several pages, it's good for the student to see through the progress bar. So always switch on this button so that the students are able to see their progress. In order to minimize the cheating by the students and reduce the level of discussions, it's always good to shuffle all the questions in the assessment for every student, so that if you have 50 students, you have each student doing a different question at the same time. So there is no time when all of them will be doing the same question at the same time. And that one will help increase the accuracy, or it will help improve the results and the reliability for your assessment. So always switch on this button to shuffle all the questions. And here we are shuffling all the. It's also good for each student to know when he or she has submitted his or her assessment by getting a message, a confirmation message. Currently, the confirmation message is your responses have been recorded. You can click on edit and then you change that message, like by typing, congrats, your submission received, and then you click on save. Or to have more than one attempt, you can set that option here, but currently we have already limited our responses, or we have limited our students to only take this assessment once. Then if you want your response, your students or your respondents to see a summary of the responses, then you activate this button. In my case, or in this case, we shall not allow them to see the summary because these students are taking this assessment remotely and it's a cut. Now, if you want the students to save their answers on their browsers automatically, you click on enable autosave. Now, this autosave is important because it helps the students in case, for example, they have a problem with their browser and then they need to restart the browser. Remember, the time is limited. So if you disable autosave, it means that the students will have to repeat the entire assessment again once they refresh their browser. So for safety, because the time for the assessment is limited, it's always going to ensure that you allow the students to do autosave. That means to save their answers automatically as they work. And therefore, it's going to enable this. Currently, this, if you read here, it is disable autosave for all students. So if I switch this button on, students will not be able to, the students will not have the answers being saved automatically by the browser, and this can be very risky if the students restart or reset their browsers. So it's good for it to remain off. And then at the bottom here, we have decided how you want the form to look like to automatically collect students' emails by default. So you can switch on this button. For safety, I will switch it on personally, like that, to appear by default. So if there's something, or you want to make the questions be required, you choose this option here. And because mine is a cut and all questions are compulsory, it will remain as compulsory. That means all the questions are required by default. Wonderful. We are now through with making settings, with the settings for our quiz. Those are very important. For you can now assessment to look like on the student's side by clicking on this preview button that I've highlighted on top right hand corner there. So you just click on it and they click on see how you are. So here it is. Want to enter the if you have noted this question which is appearing as number 1, it as question number 3. But because you have shuffled, this student is receiving it as question number was our first question. When you are setting, this was our first question, but now it's the second. And this one was the second, and now it is the third. Good. So that is the preview. That's how our, you see that once they have attempted all the questions, they'll click on submit. And the progress bar is illustrating the same. Therefore, let's now go back and post our assessment, or finalize with posting our assessment. Now, if you want this assessment to be received by people who are not within the class, you will be required to click on send, and then here you will type the emails for the people that want to receive this assessment outside the class. So we shall not use this one because we want to restrict the students who will take the exam or the assessment be the ones in our class. Therefore, we will go back to our settings. Yes, so we are back to our final settings. So when we come back here, I said here you select the class that you want to receive the assessment. Already, this assessment for a single is for a single class. Therefore, this option here is not active. If you want specific students to receive your assessment, and not all of them, you click there. 3 students. We have Jenny Kare, we have Johnny Kamau, we have Mary Otieno. If you want a single student to receive like Jenny Kare, then you checked that to receive. In my case, all the students when should the student submit the feedback for this assessment? So you select it there. I will set it. So my due date for this assessment date will be June 2020. the time for this cut, they should submit it at 12. They should, in fact, they should submit it at 00. That means 12:30 a.m. 12. And the points, our marks is, and the topic, we need to select the topic. So you click on topic, my assignment appear under assessments. So I'll tick assessments. I will not bother the rubric for now. And then the last step we need to do, so I'll change some details here under the instructions, but this card closes at exactly, so I'll change this one so that it reads at exactly 12:30 a.m. 12:30 a.m. And then finally, I'll now assign this exam or this assessment to the students by clicking on assign so they see it immediately, or I send you. The best option is always to send you. So I'll click on this button here and then I'll select send you so that the card will appear at a specific time and date. So I'll click on send you. A send you window will appear from where students will be required to a schedule will appear which will indicate the date and the time when the students will see this assessment. So select the date when and the time when the assessment should be displayed. Therefore, it is 4th. And then because my card takes 5 minutes, then it should appear at 12:25 a.m. 12:25 a.m. So it will appear at 12:25 a.m. Then finally, you click on send you. Good. So from the classwork section, you can now see that under assessments, our card has been scheduled to appear in the online classroom at 12:25 a.m. That's when it will become active. And then once it becomes active, as we are going to see, it will be displayed on the stream section, and every student will be able to receive the alert for this assessment in their online email. That is in their online classroom email at 12:25, and then they will go do the submissions and their answers will be received. So we are going to check after at 12:25 a.m. We are going to see what will happen. So this card will be activated. It will become active both under the classwork section and also under the stream section, and each student will receive an alert in his or her email. So they will attempt the card, and after they attempt the card, they will submit. So our next step that we are going to see just now is on how to check the students that will have submitted their feedback for this card. And also, we receive the grades, we look at the grades, and we send the students those results. So that is now what we are going to do, because now we are resetting our assessment. We have already scheduled the assessment, which is a card, and therefore we are now expecting the students who are in an online classroom and the people, that is the following students, to attempt our assessment. That is Jane Kare, as you can see them, Jane Kare, John Kamau, and Mary Otieno. These ones will attempt that question or that card and then they will do their submission, and then we are going to look at what they will have scored, and then we shall download their results and also send them the same results. That's the results that we have gotten. And therefore, for us to do that, we are going to click on the stream section, and then we shall click on the link to our active, cut at exactly 12:31 a.m. so that we see the responses from the students and the scores they will have attained, and then we shall grade them and release them. Therefore, my dear colleague teachers, trainers, lecturers, and the rest of viewers and listeners, you can see that the cut that we have already set and the posted that we had scheduled was posted automatically by the Google Classroom LMS at 12:26 a.m. Therefore, it became active, and we expect that the students participated in taking it. If we click on the classwork section, we expect to see that the weightage and the assessments, you can see that the opening cut was activated and it was due at 12:30 a.m. Therefore, because this time, 12:30 a.m. already passed, let's find out the students that responded to our test items. So we are going to click on the stream, and then we click on the link for our assessment. So we shall click on it. When you click on it, you will see that so far the system received responses from 3 students. So these students turned in their work, and therefore there is none who is currently assigned the task or the cut. So the students that responded, Jane Kare turned in, Johnny Kamau has turned in, Mary Otieno has turned in. If any one of them didn't turn in, we would have missing. Therefore, you can see that the marks have not yet been assigned per student. They will be assigned when we release the grades. Therefore, let us now open this cut, the link to the cut, so that we see how students fared, and then we also release the scores. So we click on that link for the assessment. Once we click that, then we scroll down, and then we are going to click on edit, this button here on the bottom lower side of your right hand side screen, so that we are going to be taken back to the response section, and also so that we are going to be able to look at the responses. So at this point, we are going to click on responses tab so that we see the responses that the students posted. So you click on responses, and you can see before even we click, we already have 3 responses. So you click on response tab or heading. Then from there, you can see the summary. So we have a summary of our performance. So you can see the average scores for the class. The median score is 20, and the students are ranging between 10 to 30 points. So this is the map. You can see we have a chart for the same to indicate the performance. This is very good analysis for our CAT. Very good analysis. You can see the scores that each of them received and the time that they submitted their responses. And also, you can see analysis for each of the questions, each of the test items, each of the 10 items. All of them have been analyzed here. Therefore, the Google Learning Management System, the overall summary for your students for in-depth assessment, and it also shows you how each question was done by the students, and you can also be able to check how each of the students fared in that assessment per question. So let's click on question, then we see what you see from there. So this, when you click on question, you'll be able to move from one student to the next. So question number 1, you can see question number 1, how it has been fared by the students. So 2 responses. You can see 2 responses there. Or 2 students. Got it right. 1 got it wrong. And you can do the same for the next question. You can be able to see true were how many and the false were how many. And you also do the same for the other one. Then you can also click under individual to see how each individual performed. So the first student here, you can see is Jane. She performed. In fact, she got everything right. She scored 30 out of 30. And the score was released at 12:28 a.m. when she submitted her work, and you can see. So do the same by clicking how she fared, and you also do the same on that button. And if you want to print, each individual performance in the CAT or the exam, each student's assessment, you click on print icon, the one which I'm highlighting here. So let's go back to the summary section so that we release all the scores at once. So click on summary. You click on summary. And then once you click on summary, you scroll down, and then you can now release the scores to the students as a whole. And those scores will now be indicated in our system as the scores attained, and they will also be reflected in our Excel sheet. So we are going to click on release to accompany. You want to add to accompany the results, you can type that message here. For example, you can add a message here that this is your score for done, for the CAT done, or any other. And then you click on send emails and release the score. So every student will be able to receive his or her score directly in his or her email. And those emails are those ones which are already listed here for each student. So let's send them the scores. So send emails and release. So you can now see that our system indicates that we have officially released all our scores. And with that, we have successfully been able to administer our assessment, our CAT. The students have been able to attempt it and their scores. Let's now see the overall results in form of an Excel sheet, which we can also download. And remember, for you to do that, you click on this button here, just as I explained. So what you do is you click on that button to see the students' answers, as you can see, in form of an Excel sheet, and the marks that the system has been able to assign them. So you can see that of them did their submissions. The heading, of course, you can see is FICT 2021-2022 J/M1 ICT opening CAT responses. If you scroll, you will see very emails here are helping us to be able to identify the students. That's why I said that's very important for you to ensure and ask to be able to see the time of submission, the score attained by each student, and the answers per item, but you cannot tell, or you not tell who is the owner of each of those results. The second score is for Miri Otieno, and the third score is for John Kamau. Very important, and that's why I said in our first video on managing your online teaching using Google Classroom LMS, part 1 on creating and applying LMS, we said always ensure that your students have emails that identify them. Therefore, the last step that we are going to do is to download these results so that we can save them. Right? So how do we download them? The performance of the student in your computer, you can click on the print. If your machine is connected to a printer, and your work will all be printed in form of an Excel sheet, or you click on the file and then you download. So we are going to click on the file, and then we click on download. You can see this option here on download. So we click on download, file, click on the file, and then download. And then you can decide whether to download as an Excel sheet, open document, PDF, or web page. In our case, for the sake of editing this work, or this Excel, this option on Microsoft Excel. And then select where you want to save it. I will save it in my desktop, and then you can give it a name that will identify it, like FICT 2022 JM1 ICT opening CAT. That's very okay. Responses. So just click on save. We click on save. You can see at the bottom of our screen, the document has now been downloaded as an Excel sheet. And therefore, if these results are required by anybody, or even by yourself for any future use, you can be able to access them in your computer. And let's see that. And therefore, for us to be able to see the contents of our file, which we have already downloaded and we have stored it on the desktop. As you can see, we are going to right click on it and click on open. So we click on open, and then we are going to wait for our document to open so that we can be in it. That is, so that we can be able to see the students' performance in addition to the responses that they gave in the opening cut that they have already done. And therefore, as opened, and this is the data that is in our file. Now, once we have our file that contains the students' responses and the scores, we can now format it so that it only contains the students and the scores they have attained, and we can also add an heading to this file. Therefore, we are going to move the data for the email to the first row. So we are going to move it the first row. So here, or the first column, and that you do when you are formatting your documents in Excel. So let me add, or let me insert a row here in the first column. Let me insert a column so that I can move the student emails to occupy the first column. Therefore, I'll click on my first column, and then I right click and click insert, and then entire column, then I click OK. Once I have done that, I can now move these emails to my first column, and you do this normally as you do, or as you format in a spreadsheet. So I'll move my emails there. Then you can resize. You can resize your column. Then I'm not interested with the timestamp, so I'll delete this column, the entire column. I'll retain the score, and then I'm not interested with the answers that the students posted, because what I'm interested with is the students' performance. So I'll delete those entire columns, and therefore I will remain, or I've remained with email addresses and the scores. So we can insert a row here to help us identify the contents of this file when printed. So I can type here students, or I can start with the name of the class, that is FICT stroke 2022 stroke J stroke M1 ICT opening cut students performance. FICT 2022 stroke J stroke M1 ICT unit opening cut students performance. You can make that bold. And also, you can increase the font size, a heading ought to be. Therefore, you can increase the font size even to be 14 and underline. And then, and the emails, you can decide to retain the emails as they are because they are self-identifiable. But here, you can have this as students details, student details, students details. Why students details is because you can be able to identify has which email. You can also make this more identifiable by stating this score. That is, you can have it as score X out of 30 because the cat was out of 30. You can have it as score of 30, and then you can also center that and underline. Student details, you can center that and underline. You can also format this column so that these ones do not read that out of 30 because you have already indicated the heading or the label as score out of 30. So you can select that data, then right click on it, click on format cells, and then you can make that number. And because it's a score, we don't need decimal places, and then you just click on OK. Good. So this is our document, and therefore you can save. You can save that document by clicking on the Save button. And therefore, with that, once you have done that, your data, your results will now be stored for future reference in a storage medium. And therefore, if you want, you can even split. You can add more columns with a dimension number, the student name, the class is the same, and then you can also retain the email address. So the formatting of the data will depend with you as a trainer, a lecturer, or an instructor. And therefore, having done that, we have come to the end of the topic on assessing students in Google Classroom or using Google Classroom. I therefore take this opportunity to congratulate you for learning how to set and administer assessments, grade them, and compile students' performance using Google Classroom Learning Management System. You can access all our other videos on various topics in the field of ICT or computers for free from our YouTube channel by the name Emily Swap ICT. If you have not yet subscribed to the above YouTube channel, look for subscribe button at the end of this presentation and click on it. You can also learn our part 1 and part 2 series of videos demonstrating on how you can manage your online teaching using a Google Classroom Learning Management System. In case you would also like to access our other various motivational, inspirational, and life skills topics, search for our other YouTube channel by the name Swap Enterprises International and click on subscribe button for prompt updates. In case of any queries, write to us through the email emilyswap@gmail.com. Thank you very much and enjoy using Google Classroom Learning Management System to manage your training or your teaching activities. Thank you very much.